difficult questions. That actually that brings me another question to mind. What's the most difficult question in economics that you worked on so far?
Hmm. There are a lot of difficult questions. Probably the most difficult ones are the ones that I decided not to work on because I had no good way of answering the questions, but that I have tried to work on. I think I've been really interested recently in the question of how probably a government, but really any organization fills positions in different geographic locations. So a lot of countries have a huge variety of places to live and what it's like to live in those places. And one thing that a lot of countries, rich countries and poor countries, face is difficulty in getting service providers to more remote locations. What we mean by remote is sometimes not well defined, but often places where the weather is pretty harsh, where access by road to anything is limited, access by road to capital cities is pretty limited, maybe access to stores and places to purchase things. You know, in the US, people often think about this as just access to good restaurants is limited. So how do you get somebody to move to places where you still have kids, you still want to provide schools, you still have people, so you still want to provide health centers? How do you get doctors and nurses and teachers to live in those places? And different countries do it in such interesting and different ways. And how can you do that in such a way that people don't leave? People don't, oh, you know, I'm a teacher, you've sent me to the most remote place, I'm not gonna be a teacher anymore. If this is the only place that you're gonna let me be a teacher, I'm gonna go and do something else. I'll go to a private school or I'll do, you know. And I think that that's been a pretty interesting question. So I've been thinking about this a lot in Kenya. I think that this is a big issue in a lot of Kenyan public service, but there's one program that recruits and trains Kenyan university graduates to go all over the country to work as sort of literacy aides in low performing public primary schools as designated by the county. And the government set this up initially out of desire to have people interact across groups. So there was recognition that there exists some ethnic tensions in Kenya. Some groups don't want to talk to anybody else, but maybe they haven't met enough people of that group. And so what if we encourage some of this interaction and in really positive ways? You know, you've got this like cool 22-year-old who goes into the small town and plays with the kids and everybody's happy and it's very loving and friendly. And so it builds these, you know, positive feelings. So how do you get that to happen when somebody kind of has a preference for living closer to home or living closer to a capital city? And so we've been thinking a lot about how to set those up, how to take into consideration people's preferences. Because sometimes when you think about what remote means, you could be on the beach or you could be on the mountains. And some people, the beach is just terrible, it's too sunny and the bugs are awful. And for other people, the mountain is just too, I don't know, too desolate and too remote. And so if you just ask people which of the remote places you prefer, it seems like you can probably get people to stay in their remote position for a little bit longer. But anyway, yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's actually very,